to the Business Blueprint Podcast, where we take you on an exciting adventure through our triumphs and challenges and failures in creating and maintaining a thriving 6, 7, and 8-figure business. Get ready to dive into our strategies, decisions, and yes, even valuable lessons we've learned from our missteps. But that's not all. We'll also bring you industry-leading guests who will provide you with their priceless insights and wisdom. Stay tuned because the captivating journey of the Business Blueprint begins right now. So how do you, when you're talking to people, get them to talk to you from a mentor point of view?
Two things. One, I was in a group setting a few months ago. I visited one of our offices, and I had all the attorneys, all the staff there. And I opened it up and I said, everyone's checking their egos at the door. No one here has a title, and everything remains confidential. We want to foster that open relationship. Cell phones down. Do not look at your cell phones. Do not check email, because I want everyone to be engaged. And there was a slow burn at first, right? We had a slow start, but then it's just, I asked some silly random question that was so out of left field that generated some interest, because they were like, wait a second, what? And then others started chiming in. And then to your point, it just morphed into something else. And then you got that open and honest discussion and feedback. And as the mentor kind of in that situation, I said, no, listen, what can I do better? What can I do to support you? And there was silence. And then I just threw out some, again, weird ideas. And then it started morphing into a really good, productive conversation. And in the relationship that I have with some of our current managers, it was their first time in this type of relationship. And I remember my first time. It's uncomfortable. You have that awkward silence because you're like, do I ask a question? Do I wait? What do I do? So I just came up with this really, again, weird idea for the firm that we weren't even going to implement, but it just made them think, wait a second, what are you talking about here? And it opened up that dialogue. And then I kind of navigated it back to what we really wanted to, and to what you're talking about with that Teams meeting in the MHU Next. It's a wonderful thing to see, because you can see it in their face and their expression when that idea goes off, like, oh, wait a second. And then you just start talking about it, because no idea is too big or too small. Everything works. Let's figure out what can we do to make it happen, whether it's today, tomorrow, in the future. But I really want to get mentees, and just even everyone within the firm or your company, you want to get them just thinking about what can we do to make not just my job better, but for the company better. Because if you start thinking that bigger picture, then these mentees become your leaders, and that's how you can start growing your leaders.
It is. And you said something that hits home very close to me. Put your cell phones down, turn off your email, and I know it's hard. Just turn it off. When you're on an electronic communication, just turn off your email. Yeah. Set your cell phone upside down. Yes, there are emergencies that come through from family, right? There are family emergencies, and of course that's different, but show the respect to the person that's trying to work with you, and that is a big deal. People don't realize, maybe we do, how obvious it is when an email communication comes across, and the first thing you do on a meeting is your eyes go up here. Oh, okay. No, and then you watch people, they'll start reading something, and you're like, you're not paying attention to me whatsoever. So thank you for wasting my time. So I think it's extraordinarily important to show, as a mentee, to show the person respect. I mean, I remember the first time I got a mentor, I met them out for lunch. I bought them lunch, and I left my cell phone in the car, and all the focus was on them. I was there. I wanted their time, and I was wanting to take their time. So in my mind, I had to be completely respectful of that.
Mm-hmm.
Another hard bridge to cross is, how do you ask somebody to be a mentor? How have you done that in the past?
It goes back to what we were talking about. I try to figure out what it is that I want to be mentored on, and then identify who I think is the best fit. And I'll just approach them, say, excuse me, I'm looking for some help. Would you be able to be my mentor or help me through this? And that person may say, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing it, but you may want to talk to so-and-so. And that way it opens up the dialogue of, okay, I may not be the best fit for you, but here's someone is. And then they can make that introduction, whether it's in person or email or whatever the case may be. And then you can go and approach that person and ask for help, or have them be your mentor. And sometimes I try to shy away from the word help, because it goes back to what you mentioned earlier. You don't want to give this mentee-mentor relationship a negative connotation. It's really a positive thing. And quite frankly, it's a beautiful thing when it works out. because it allows both parties to be engaged, which either will benefit the client and or the company or firm. But it's just making sure that I've identified what it is that I want to be mentored on and what I want to improve on and do better, and then find that right person. But it's hard because you may be in a situation where you don't find the right person, or someone just doesn't seem all that interested. And as a mentee, that can be tough, but it's okay. Maybe this person doesn't have the time. So then you can ask them, well, who would you suggest? And just allow them to give you a few people to reach out to, and just reach out to them. It's really at that point, you're being proactive. And that's another step for being a mentee, is you want to take that next step, be proactive, and leaving your gadgets, or in the car or in the office. Just don't bring them in. It's huge. And so I really, it's ask questions, listen, and take notes. Those are really the big three, if you're the mentee, that I would encourage you to do and consistently do. And you're just going to get so much out of that relationship.
Mm-hmm. You are, and listening, it can't be understated. Listen, a humorous thing. So we have a chat thing where anybody in the organization can ask a question. And somebody asked a question, and over the weekend, I sat down and typed up a response to the question. And then I went into our normal mentorship meeting, and the person asked me the exact same question. And I said, well, didn't you read my team's response? And they were like, oh. And, I don't want to be harsh at all. It's not my intent to be harsh. I kind of was looking to say, okay, let's start from what my response was, right? Let's start from that point. My response was written, and I could see wanting to hear it and talking it through. But it was somewhat deflating on my end that I had taken the time to write this response on the weekend, and the person had not read it. And then, and I didn't mind them asking me the question at all, but I was like, well, read it first. But most people do. I mean, man, most of our, having in our system, where we have the ability to ask questions, a lot of, when I'm looking as a mentor, because the mentees kind of come, we have it at 9 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes they're just a little bit tired still. You're waiting, it's in a group setting. So there's not always that first person that wants to jump up and ask a question. So I try to use those chats as a way to get people going. And then, man, once you get people going, it's a great thing. We kind of talked about a little bit my philosophy that everything is my fault. So when I was looking for a mentor, I really wanted somebody to point to what I had done and say, look, you did this wrong, because that's what resonates with me. Not in a bad way. It's a good thing for me to say, look, Charles, you did this wrong. You did this wrong, and you did this wrong. It doesn't bother me. Not everybody's like that. And I do struggle personally when I'm talking to people. I struggle to stay away from it's your fault, because I understand not everybody likes that. But what do you do as a mentee when your mentor is just wrong?
It's a delicate balance. And I'm big on challenging. And challenging doesn't mean that you're creating dissension or resentment with who you're with. It's really you're actively engaged, and you want to be able to understand the full picture, but also you can challenge by just asking good questions. So if the mentor is saying you're wrong because of X, Y, and Z, instead of say, well, I don't think that I'm wrong, it's you're the one that's wrong, it's okay, can you explain why you think that? Or here's my thought process behind why I did that. Does that change your opinion? Or this is why I did it. What would you have done differently? And so you can get in that debate by asking those questions. And then it's challenging, but challenging in a professional, respectful way, and not taking everything to heart. Because if you have that good relationship that we've been talking about, and you have that trust, then you should know that that mentor has your best interest in mind, and you can ask them, by challenge them or asking questions. Or if you even feel comfortable, just say, listen, I don't appreciate you talking to me like that. That's not how I learn. Can we, maybe change it up a little bit? Because we all learn differently. And that's the challenge of the mentor, is figuring out what's the best way to communicate with the mentee. So it goes back to, again, it's that two-way street where we're always consistently learning from one another. But the mentee just needs to know that once that relationship's established, that mentor is just engaged as you are. And so they want to make sure that their time is utilized in the best interest, which is helping you succeed. So if that mentor does come down a little bit more direct, and has that type of personality that doesn't really respond well to it, then have an open discussion and let your mentor know. Or I always say, ask questions back, because you can kind of go around and get to a better place by saying, okay, I understand you're saying it's my fault, but this is why I was doing it. What would you suggest for me to do differently?
Exactly. And as the mentee, you don't have to be a whipping post, right? You don't have to sit there and take abuse from the mentor. In fact, you shouldn't. Even in my very direct way of always trying to find the nexus of the problem, and my belief that the nexus of the problem usually lies within, I talk to people first and I try to get a comfortable relationship with them going first. And if they do not have the personality that would like that, I don't do it. 100%. Even in a group setting, I can talk to one person who does have that personality, says, hey, just tell me what I did wrong. And say, this is what, personally, person X, you did wrong. Person Y, who does not have that personality, is, hey, what could we have done differently? In this case, how would we have done this differently? And so if you're the mentee, you don't have to be treated wrong. You can say, look, thank you for your time. Do you know somebody that maybe would help me out with this?
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that's difficult too. Uh, have you ever been told no when you ask somebody to be your mentor?
I think they were telling me no, but they were a little bit more diplomatic and came up with just a litany of excuses.
Mm.
So then I was like, well, who would you suggest that I talk to? And then that actually worked out and was better. But it was a little deflating because, because that's who you identified, right? And at least at that time for me, I had the courage. I was like, okay, I'm going to go up to this person. I've already rehearsed several times, so I want to ask it because I want to come across that I don't know what I'm doing or that I'm incompetent. And so I rehearsed it several times and asked them, and then they just had these litany of things, and it was a little deflating, but I was able to bounce back and say, well, who else do you think that I could talk to, and kind of put it back in their court, saying, I really wanted your help, but I get it that you're busy. Who else could I go to that may know as much as you, and kind of, stroke the ego a little bit. So hopefully they could give me some recommendations. But yeah, it's deflating. And so as the mentor, for those listening that are lucky enough to have someone come to you or approach you to be their mentor, if you don't have the time, just direct them to someone that does and that you would trust for them to be able to be mentored by.
Yeah, I think that is very important because I don't think I've ever met somebody who could not benefit from having a mentor, no matter what level they were at.
Mm.
And so, you should always abide by, you treat people how you want to be treated. So when a mentee, remember what it takes, the courage it takes to walk up to somebody and say, can you help me? Don't be a jerk about it, right? Like you said, don't be a jerk. Remember that you, as the person being asked for help in this particular situation, may be the person asking for help in a week. And if you don't honestly have the time, say, look, right now it's really not good for me, but the reality is I know this person over here, or even different, say, look, I don't have the time right now, but let's get back together in a month and try this and see if I have the time then. Um, I've had people come to me and say, in business, I had somebody who's opening up an organization and they came back and said, could you help me? And I was like, I can, but it'll be irregular, because I'm trying to do this with my organization right now. So it's going to be irregular. And that person was, as a mentee, smart enough to say, hey, would it be okay if I took you out to lunch once a month? Of course. And I said, you don't even have to take me out to lunch. I don't really like sitting there watching people eat and chew. So, for me, just use that hour, come to my place, make it easy on me, mentee, and we'll sit in the conference room and chit chat about whatever you want to for the hour. And I don't need to waste your money watching you chew your food. Um, so, I think this really gets into the idea of, when you're asking somebody for help, it's a good thing. It's a great thing to ask for help. But remember that you need to put effort into. It's not just, hey, I want a mentor. And now, mentor, come and mentor me, and I will accept your knowledge. It takes effort. And like any relationship, the more effort that you put into it, the more that you're going to get back out of it. And that is so important to remember. Put that effort in. So, next time what we'll talk about is more from the mentor's point of view, because I think that mentors, if you undertake the idea of being a mentor, you should also put in effort
Mhm.
and know when to call the relationship and say, hey, this isn't working out. So if you enjoyed this, join us next time for the second part. Subscribe below, and remember that we are here to talk about the things that we learn as we're going through it. Within our organization, we're working on mentorship programs and how to get this information to everybody. So I'm Charles Hatley, and this is Dan Cuneo with the Business Blueprint. And thank you for your time, and we enjoy talking to you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this insightful and entertaining, be sure to hit subscribe below and join us on social media to get more insight into what we are going through each and every day.